In the heart of Beverly Hills, where luxury boutiques line the streets like glittering jewels, there stood a small but prestigious store known for its exclusive collection of designer clothing. The boutique was famous not just for its clothes, but also for its reputation as a place frequented by celebrities, influencers, and wealthy socialites. It wasn't uncommon to see paparazzi camped outside, hoping to snap photos of A-listers leaving with shopping bags in hand. On this particular afternoon, the boutique's atmosphere buzzed with quiet energy. Soft classical music played in the background, and the faint scent of expensive perfume lingered in the air. Among the racks of haute couture dresses and tailored suits, a woman walked in unnoticed. She wore a simple sweater and jeans, her hair pulled back into a loose ponytail. Her name was Sarah Anderson, and she had stopped by the boutique on a whim while running errands. Sarah wasn't someone who sought attention. In fact, she preferred staying out of the spotlight whenever possible. Despite being married to one of Hollywood's most beloved actors, Keanu Reeves, she lived a relatively low-key life. Today, she wanted nothing more than to browse through some beautiful dresses without any fuss. Little did she know that her visit would turn into something far more eventful. Behind the counter stood Victoria Langley, the boutique's manager. Victoria was known for her sharp eye for fashion and her ability to spot high-profile clients from miles away. She prided herself on maintaining the store's elite image and often went out of her way to cater to those she deemed worthy. As Sarah entered, Victoria glanced up briefly before returning to organizing receipts. At first glance, Sarah didn't strike her as someone who belonged in this world of extravagance. Her casual outfit and lack of entourage made her seem out of place among the store's usual clientele. Victoria watched as Sarah wandered through the racks, occasionally pausing to admire a piece or gently run her fingers over the fabric. To anyone else, Sarah might have appeared calm and content, but Victoria's judgmental gaze followed her every move. She probably doesn't even know what half these brands are, Victoria thought dismissively. Her lips curled into a slight smirk as she continued observing from afar. Eventually, Sarah picked out a stunning gown, a flowing masterpiece adorned with intricate beadwork. It shimmered under the soft lighting, catching the eyes of everyone nearby. Holding it up against herself, Sarah smiled softly, imagining how it might look when worn. Encouraged by the dress's beauty, she decided to ask for assistance. "Excuse me," Sarah said politely, approaching the counter where Victoria stood. "Could you tell me more about this dress? I'm interested in trying it on." Victoria raised an eyebrow, feigning surprise. Instead of offering help right away, she crossed her arms and leaned slightly forward. "This dress is quite expensive," she replied, her tone laced with condescension. "It's part of our exclusive collection, so it may not be suitable for everyone." Her words hung heavy in the air, dripping with insinuation. For a moment, Sarah froze, unsure of how to respond. She hadn't expected such blatant rudeness, but rather than letting Victoria's comment get to her, she simply nodded and set the dress back on the rack. "Thank you for letting me know," she said evenly, her voice steady despite the sting of embarrassment. Without another word, she turned and began browsing elsewhere, determined not to let the encounter ruin her day. Unbeknownst to Victoria, Sarah's quiet demeanor masked a wealth of confidence and inner strength. While Victoria assumed she was dealing with an ordinary shopper, Sarah carried herself with the poise of someone accustomed to navigating high-stakes situations. After all, living alongside Keanu Reeves meant constantly balancing privacy with public scrutiny. Yet here in this boutique, Sarah chose to remain anonymous, unwilling to flaunt her status or demand special treatment. As Sarah moved to another section of the store, Victoria couldn't shake off a nagging sense of curiosity. Why did this woman seem so unfazed by her remarks? Most people would have stormed out in anger or argued back, but Sarah simply brushed it off. For reasons she couldn't explain, Victoria felt a flicker of unease creep into her mind. Still, she dismissed it quickly, convincing herself that she had done nothing wrong. After all, managing a boutique like this required making quick judgments. It was part of the job. Meanwhile, Sarah found herself drawn to another dress. This one was simpler yet equally elegant, its deep red hue catching her eye immediately. Deciding to give it a try, she headed toward the fitting rooms. Victoria, still watching closely, debated whether to intervene again. Part of her wanted to chase Sarah away entirely. Another part wondered if perhaps she'd misjudged the situation. Either way, she told herself it didn't matter. What did one customer matter in the grand scheme of things? What Victoria failed to realize, however, was that sometimes appearances can be deceiving. Beneath Sarah's modest exterior lay a story far richer than Victoria could ever imagine. And as fate would have it, this seemingly ordinary encounter was about to take a dramatic turn, one that neither woman would soon forget. Despite the earlier unpleasant exchange with Victoria, Sarah decided to give the boutique another chance. She wasn't one to let someone else's rudeness ruin her day or deter her from something she genuinely wanted. The red dress she had spotted earlier still lingered in her mind, a bold yet elegant piece that seemed perfect for an upcoming event. With quiet determination, she picked it up and headed toward the fitting rooms. Victoria, who had been keeping a close eye on Sarah since her arrival, followed her movements with growing curiosity. As Sarah disappeared behind the curtain of the fitting room, Victoria hovered nearby, pretending to straighten hangers and adjust displays, but clearly waiting to see what would happen next. Her mind raced with conflicting thoughts. On one hand, she felt a pang of guilt for how she had treated Sarah earlier. On the other hand, her pride refused to let her admit she might have made a mistake. When Sarah emerged from the fitting room wearing the red dress, even Victoria had to pause. The gown hugged her figure perfectly, its rich hue complementing her complexion in a way that was nothing short of breathtaking. For a split second, Victoria forgot her earlier disdain and simply stared, momentarily struck by how stunning Sarah looked. But just as quickly as the admiration surfaced, it was replaced by her usual skepticism. "Well," Victoria said, forcing a tight smile, "I suppose anyone can look decent if they throw enough money at themselves." Her tone was laced with sarcasm, though she tried to mask it with faux politeness. To an outsider, her words might have sounded like a compliment, but Sarah immediately picked up on the underlying insult. Instead of reacting, Sarah chose to remain composed. She glanced at herself in the mirror, smoothing out imaginary wrinkles in the fabric. "It fits well," she remarked calmly, almost as if she hadn't heard Victoria's comment at all. Her voice carried no hint of anger or defensiveness, just quiet confidence. It was clear that Sarah wasn't going to rise to the bait or engage in any kind of confrontation. Her calm demeanor only seemed to irritate Victoria further. The manager couldn't understand why Sarah didn't appear ruffled by her remarks. Most customers would have either stormed out in anger or demanded to speak to a higher authority. But Sarah stood there unfazed, exuding an aura of grace that left Victoria feeling oddly unsettled. Deciding to test the waters further, Victoria leaned against the wall and crossed her arms. "So, do you think this is something you'd actually buy?" she asked, her tone dripping with condescension. "Because, we do have a strict return policy. Once something is purchased, there's no going back." Sarah turned to face her, meeting Victoria's gaze directly. There was no trace of intimidation in her expression, only a steady, unwavering calm. "Yes, I'm considering it," she replied simply. "Could you tell me the price?" The question caught Victoria off guard. She hesitated for a moment before answering, wondering if Sarah truly understood the cost of the dress. When she finally spoke, her voice carried a note of smugness. "This particular piece is $15,000, she announced, emphasizing the amount as if to drive home the idea that it was far beyond what Sarah could afford. To her surprise, Sarah didn't flinch. Instead, she nodded thoughtfully, as if weighing the value of the dress against its price tag. "Thank you," she said politely. "I'll take it." Victoria blinked, momentarily stunned. Surely this woman wasn't serious. Who walked into a high-end boutique dressed so casually and then proceeded to purchase a gown worth thousands of dollars without batting an eyelash? Determined to maintain control over the situation, Victoria forced herself to smile again. "Of course," she said, her voice strained. Let me ring that up for you. As Sarah followed Victoria to the counter, the manager couldn't help but scrutinize her once more. Was she bluffing? Would she suddenly realize she didn't have enough money and backtrack? Or worse, would she claim to have forgotten her wallet altogether? These scenarios played out in Victoria's mind as she rang up the sale, each possibility fueling her growing unease. When it came time to pay, Sarah reached into her purse and pulled out a sleek black wallet. From it, she extracted a wad of crisp, $100 bills, carefully counting them out before placing them on the counter. Victoria's eyes widened slightly at the sight of the cash. Most customers used credit cards or digital payments, especially for such large purchases. Paying in cash felt almost old-fashioned. Yet here was Sarah doing exactly that, without hesitation or fanfare. "Is this everything?" Sarah asked, glancing up at Victoria. Her tone was polite but firm, leaving no room for further commentary. Victoria nodded mutely, unsure of what to say. She wrapped the dress in tissue paper and placed it inside a branded shopping bag, handing it over with a forced smile. "Thank you for your purchase," she managed, her voice tinged with uncertainty. As Sarah took the bag and turned to leave, Victoria found herself rooted to the spot, watching her go. Something about the entire interaction gnawed at her. Why hadn't Sarah reacted angrily to her snide remarks? Why had she paid in cash instead of using a card? And most importantly, who was this woman? Little did Victoria know, the answers to these questions were far more intriguing than she could have imagined. Unbeknownst to her, Sarah Anderson wasn't just any ordinary customer. She was married to Keanu Reeves, one of Hollywood's most iconic actors, and one of the wealthiest men in the entertainment industry. While Sarah preferred to keep her personal life private, choosing not to flaunt her status during public outings, her decision to shop alone today had inadvertently led to this unexpected clash with Victoria. As Sarah stepped outside the boutique and into the warm California sunshine, she felt a mix of emotions. Part of her was amused by Victoria's behavior, while another part felt a twinge of sadness for the manager's misplaced arrogance. Still, she reminded herself that everyone makes mistakes, and perhaps this encounter would serve as a lesson for Victoria in the future. Back inside the boutique, Victoria struggled to shake off the nagging feeling that she had misjudged Sarah entirely. She replayed their interactions in her mind, searching for clues she might have missed. Something about Sarah's demeanor, the quiet confidence, the lack of pretense, didn't align with the image Victoria had formed of her earlier. Deep down, she knew she had crossed a line, but admitting it to herself was harder than she anticipated. For now the boutique returned to its usual rhythm, with soft music playing in the background and the faint hum of conversation filling the air. But beneath the surface, the seeds of change had already been planted. Victoria's encounter with Sarah had set off a chain reaction, one that would soon force her to confront her own biases and reconsider the way she treated others. And as fate would have it, the story was far from over. What Victoria didn't realize was that her actions, or rather her missteps, were about to come full circle in ways she couldn't possibly predict. That evening, after the boutique had closed its doors and the last customer had left, Victoria found herself scrolling through her phone in the quiet solitude of her office. The day's events lingered heavily on her mind, replaying like a broken record. She couldn't shake the nagging feeling that something about Sarah, the woman she had treated so dismissively, wasn't quite right. There was an air of mystery surrounding her, a quiet confidence that didn't match the image Victoria had constructed in her head. As she scrolled absent-mindedly through social media, one post caught her attention. It was a photo shared by a popular celebrity gossip account, showing none other than Keanu Reeves walking hand in hand with a woman outside what looked unmistakably like her boutique. The caption read, "Keanu and his wife spotted shopping today." Below the photo, hundreds of comments poured in from fans gushing over the couple's undeniable chemistry and praising their down-to-earth nature. Victoria froze, her heart pounding as she zoomed in on the image. The woman standing next to Keanu, smiling softly as they strolled together, was unmistakably Sarah. Her casual sweater and jeans, her loose ponytail, even the way she carried herself, it was all exactly as Victoria remembered. But now, Seeing her alongside one of Hollywood's most beloved figures, everything clicked into place. Oh no, Victoria whispered to herself, her stomach sinking. That was her, Keanu Reeves's wife. The realization hit her like a freight train. Every snide comment, every condescending remark she had made earlier that day suddenly felt 10 times worse. What had she been thinking? How could she have been so blind, so arrogant? Victoria buried her face in her hands, overcome with shame. She had judged Sarah based on appearances alone, never stopping to consider that beneath the simplicity lay a life of privilege, success, and influence far greater than anything Victoria could imagine. Panic set in as she began to think about the potential fallout. Word traveled fast in Beverly Hills, especially when it came to stories involving celebrities. If Sarah decided to share her experience, or worse, if someone else posted about it online, the boutique's reputation could be ruined. Clients might boycott the store, and competitors would seize the opportunity to tarnish its name even further. Victoria's career, which she had worked so hard to build, hung precariously in the balance. Desperate for a solution, she grabbed her phone and called her assistant, Mia, who answered almost immediately. "Mia," Victoria said, her voice trembling, "I need you to do something urgent for me." "What is it?" Mia asked, sensing the urgency in her boss's tone. "I messed up big time today," Victoria admitted, pacing back and forth in her office. "There was a customer. I treated her badly, really badly, and it turns out she's Keanu Reeves's wife. You know, the Keanu Reeves. I need you to find a way to contact her. We have to apologize before this blows up." Mia gasped audibly on the other end of the line. "Are you serious? Oh my God, Victoria, what happened?" "I don't have time to explain everything now," Victoria interrupted, her voice rising slightly. "Just trust me, okay? This is bad. Really bad. Can you figure out how to reach her? Maybe check our records or see if anyone knows her personally. Do whatever it takes." Okay, Mia replied quickly. "I'll start looking into it right away. But are you sure an apology will fix this?" "No, but it's better than doing nothing," Victoria snapped, then softened her tone. "Look, I know I screwed up. I acted like a complete idiot. And now I need to make things right. Please, Mia, just help me." After hanging up, Victoria sat down at her desk, her mind racing. She knew an apology wouldn't magically erase the damage she had done, but it was a start. Still, crafting the right words wouldn't be easy. She needed to strike a balance between sincerity and professionalism, ensuring that Sarah understood how deeply sorry she was without sounding overly defensive or insincere. For hours, Victoria agonized over the draft of her apology letter. She started and restarted countless times, each version feeling either too stiff or too desperate. Finally, she settled on something that seemed genuine enough. "Dear Mrs. Anderson Reeves, I hope this message finds you well. I am writing to express my deepest apologies for the treatment you received during your visit to our boutique earlier today. My behavior was unacceptable, and I deeply regret any discomfort or embarrassment I may have caused you. It is never my intention to make anyone feel unwelcome, and I realize now that my actions fell far short of the standards we strive to uphold. Please know that your satisfaction and comfort are incredibly important to us, and I take full responsibility for failing to provide the level of service you deserve. To show my commitment to making amends, I would like to offer you a lifetime discount at our boutique, along with complimentary alterations and styling services whenever you choose to shop with us again. While I understand that this gesture cannot undo the harm caused, I sincerely hope it demonstrates my desire to rectify the situation. Once again, I apologize from the bottom of my heart. Thank you for taking the time to read this, and I truly hope we can move forward positively. Sincerely, Victoria Langley, boutique manager. As she reread the letter, Victoria felt a mix of relief and anxiety. Would it be enough? Could Sarah forgive her for being so judgmental and rude? Or would she dismiss the apology entirely, choosing instead to distance herself from the boutique forever? Before sending the letter, Victoria hesitated, staring at her phone screen. She wondered if she should call instead of writing, or perhaps send flowers along with the note. Each option carried risks, and she wasn't sure which approach would resonate best with Sarah. In the end, she decided to go ahead and mail the letter, hoping it would reach Sarah soon. Meanwhile, unbeknownst to Victoria, Sarah had already discussed the incident with Keanu. That evening over dinner at their cozy home, Sarah recounted the day's events with a mix of amusement and mild frustration. Keanu listened intently, his brow furrowing as she described how Victoria had treated her. "That's ridiculous," he said firmly, setting down his fork. "You shouldn't have to deal with that kind of disrespect, especially not because of what you're wearing. Did you say anything to her?" "No," Sarah replied with a small shrug. "I didn't want to cause a scene. Besides, it's not worth getting upset over. People like that aren't worth my energy." Keanu frowned clearly, unhappy with her response. "I get that you don't like confrontation, but letting people walk all over you isn't the answer either. Maybe we should call the boutique tomorrow and let them know how their manager behaved. They need to understand that this kind of thing isn't okay." Sarah sighed, knowing Keanu was right. As much as she preferred to avoid drama, she also knew that staying silent sometimes allowed bad behavior to continue unchecked. After a long pause, she nodded reluctantly. "All right," she said. "If you think it's necessary, I'll call them. But I'm not looking for revenge or anything like that. I just want them to learn from this." The next morning, Sarah picked up the phone and dialed the boutique's number. When Victoria answered, her voice shaky and uncertain, Sarah spoke calmly but firmly. She explained how she had felt during their interaction and emphasized the importance of treating all customers with respect, regardless of how they appeared. Throughout the conversation, Victoria listened intently, apologizing profusely and promising to address the issue immediately. By the time the call ended, both women felt a sense of closure. For Victoria, it was a humbling reminder of the power of assumptions and the dangers of letting pride cloud judgment. For Sarah, it was proof that forgiveness and understanding could pave the way for growth, even in the most unexpected circumstances. Little did either of them know, this moment marked the beginning of a transformation, not just for Victoria, but for the boutique as a whole. The ripple effects of their encounter would soon spread far beyond the walls of the store, inspiring change in ways neither woman could have anticipated. The fallout from Victoria's encounter with Sarah spread quickly through the tight-knit world of luxury retail. Within days, whispers of the incident began circulating among boutique owners, stylists, and personal shoppers in Beverly Hills. Word had somehow leaked, whether through a staff member at the boutique or via social media, and soon everyone was talking about the manager who had humiliated a customer, only to discover that the woman was none other than Keanu Reeves' wife. At first, Victoria tried to downplay the situation, telling herself it would blow over. But as the days passed, she realized the gravity of what had happened. High-end boutiques thrived on exclusivity and reputation, and hers was now under scrutiny. Clients started canceling appointments, some citing personal reasons, while others made thinly veiled comments about professionalism. Competitors, eager to capitalize on her misstep, began spreading rumors that the boutique lacked proper training for its staff and failed to treat customers with respect. Victoria knew she couldn't ignore the growing backlash. Sitting alone in her office one afternoon, she stared at her reflection in the mirror, feeling like a stranger staring back at her. How had she let this happen? She had always prided herself on running a polished operation, yet here she was, facing the consequences of her own arrogance. The realization weighed heavily on her shoulders, forcing her to confront not just the external repercussions but also the flaws within herself. Determined to salvage her career and the boutique's reputation, Victoria decided to take action. She enrolled in workshops focused on customer service and conflict resolution, attending sessions alongside employees from other industries. At first, she felt out of place, surrounded by people whose jobs seemed worlds apart from hers. But as the days went on, she found herself learning valuable lessons about empathy, patience, and the importance of treating every person with dignity, regardless of their appearance or demeanor. One exercise particularly struck a chord with her. The instructor asked participants to pair up and share stories of times they had been judged unfairly. As Victoria listened to her partner, a young man who worked in hospitality, recount how he'd once been dismissed by a guest because of his tattoos. She felt a pang of guilt. His story reminded her so much of Sarah, and she realized how isolating it must have felt for him to be stereotyped, based on something superficial. When it was her turn to speak, Victoria hesitated before sharing her own experience, omitting names but admitting to having judged someone harshly without knowing their full story. It was cathartic in a way to admit her mistakes aloud, even if no one in the room knew exactly who she was referring to. Armed with newfound insight, Victoria returned to the boutique ready to implement changes. She called a meeting with her entire team, addressing them with a vulnerability she rarely showed. "I've made a mistake," she began, pacing slowly in front of the group. "A big one. And I need your help to make sure it never happens again. Not to me and not to any of you." She went on to explain what had transpired with Sarah, though she omitted specific details to protect the customer's privacy. Instead, she framed the incident as a cautionary tale, emphasizing the dangers of making assumptions based on appearances. "Every single person who walks through those doors deserves our best," she said firmly. "We don't know their story, their struggles, or their achievements. Our job is to provide exceptional service no matter what." To reinforce this message, Victoria introduced new policies aimed at fostering inclusivity and respect. Staff members were required to attend monthly training sessions on customer interaction and cultural sensitivity. A feedback system was implemented, allowing clients to anonymously rate their experiences and offer suggestions for improvement. Most importantly, Victoria mandated that all employees memorize a simple mantra: treat every customer as if they are the most important person in the room. While these changes were underway, Sarah found herself reflecting on the incident during quiet moments at home. Though she had forgiven Victoria, the memory still lingered in the back of her mind. One evening, as she sipped tea on the porch with Keanu, she brought it up casually. "Do you think I should give her another chance?" she asked, swirling the liquid in her cup thoughtfully. Keanu looked at her, his expression thoughtful. "That's entirely up to you," he replied. "But if you're asking my opinion, I think forgiveness is powerful. You've already shown her grace by calling and speaking to her directly. If you feel like giving her a second chance, then do it. Not because she deserves it, but because it's who you are." Sarah smiled faintly, touched by his words. She appreciated Keanu's ability to see the bigger picture, to remind her of the values they both held dear. Still, she wasn't sure if returning to the boutique was the right move. Part of her worried that doing so might come across as flaunting her status, while another part wondered if Victoria had truly changed, or was simply trying to save face. Her decision came unexpectedly a few weeks later, when a friend mentioned needing a dress for an upcoming gala. Knowing the boutique carried pieces that would suit her perfectly, Sarah offered to accompany her friend on the shopping trip. It wasn't until they were standing outside the store that Sarah realized where they were. Her heart skipped a beat, but she pushed aside her hesitation and walked in, determined to approach the visit with an open mind. Inside, the atmosphere felt different. Gone was the air of pretension that had once permeated the space. Instead, there was a warmth and attentiveness that hadn't been there before. Employees greeted customers with genuine smiles, offering assistance without being pushy. And then, as if sensing her presence, Victoria appeared from behind the counter, her eyes widening slightly when she recognized Sarah. For a moment, neither woman spoke. Then Victoria stepped forward, her posture humble and her voice soft. "Mrs. Anderson Reeves," she said, "thank you for coming back. I can't tell you how much your forgiveness has meant to me. Please, let me assist you today." Sarah studied her for a moment, searching for sincerity in her expression. What she saw was genuine remorse and a desire to make amends. Nodding slowly, she replied, "Thank you, Victoria. I appreciate that." Over the course of the next hour, Victoria personally helped Sarah and her friend browse through the collection, offering recommendations and ensuring they felt comfortable throughout the process. Her demeanor was a stark contrast to the dismissive attitude she had displayed during their first encounter. This time, there was no trace of judgment or condescension, only professionalism and kindness. As Sarah prepared to leave, Victoria handed her a small envelope. Inside was a handwritten note expressing gratitude for giving her a second chance, along with a certificate for a complimentary styling session. "It's the least I can do," Victoria said earnestly. "You've taught me a lot about humility and compassion, and I'll carry those lessons with me forever." Sarah accepted the gesture graciously, touched by the effort Victoria had put into turning things around. As she walked out of the boutique, she felt a sense of closure wash over her. Forgiveness, she realized, wasn't just about letting go of anger. It was also about creating opportunities for growth and understanding. For Victoria, the day marked a turning point. She had faced the consequences of her actions head-on, owning her mistakes and working tirelessly to become a better version of herself. While the road ahead wouldn't always be easy, she knew she was on the right path, one paved with accountability, empathy, and a renewed commitment to serving others with integrity. And for Sarah, the experience served as a reminder of the power of grace. By choosing to forgive and extend a second chance, she had not only helped Victoria grow but also reinforced her own belief in the goodness of people. Together, they had transformed an awkward and uncomfortable moment into something meaningful, a testament to the fact that even in the most unlikely circumstances, redemption and connection are possible. In the weeks following Sarah's return to the boutique, the ripple effects of their encounter began to shape not just Victoria's life, but also the culture of the entire store. The changes Victoria had implemented weren't merely cosmetic, they were transformative, altering how employees interacted with customers and each other. What had once been a place defined by exclusivity and elitism slowly evolved into a space where warmth, inclusivity, and genuine care took center stage. Victoria became almost unrecognizable to those who had known her before. Gone was the sharp-tongued manager quick to judge based on appearances. In her place stood someone humbled and reflective, eager to learn from every interaction. She made it a point to lead by example, greeting each customer personally and ensuring they felt valued from the moment they walked in. Her team noticed this shift immediately, and many followed suit, inspired by her newfound dedication to excellence without arrogance. Sarah, too, found herself reflecting on the transformation. Though she hadn't intended to play such a pivotal role in reshaping the boutique's ethos, she couldn't deny the impact her actions, or rather her forgiveness, had sparked. One evening, as she sat curled up on the couch with Keanu, flipping through a magazine featuring an article about the new face of luxury retail, she paused when she saw a familiar name mentioned: Victoria Langley. The piece highlighted Victoria's efforts to redefine customer service standards in high-end boutiques, crediting her leadership for setting a new benchmark in the industry. "Look at this," Sarah said, nudging Keanu and pointing to the article. "It seems like Victoria's really turned things around." Keanu glanced at the page, his lips curving into a smile. "Good for her," he replied. "She must have worked hard to get that kind of recognition. You know, sometimes people need a wake-up call to realize their potential. Sounds like you gave her exactly that." Sarah nodded thoughtfully, feeling a quiet sense of pride, not for herself but for Victoria. It wasn't easy to admit fault, let alone work tirelessly to change ingrained behaviors. Yet here was proof that growth was possible, even in the most unexpected places. Still, Sarah couldn't help but wonder if Victoria ever thought about their initial meeting, or if she viewed it as a distant memory now overshadowed by success. Meanwhile, Victoria did think about it, often. Late at night, after closing up the boutique and sending her staff home, she would sit at her desk, staring at the framed certificate displayed prominently on the wall. It was a small token of appreciation from a local business association honoring her commitment to customer satisfaction. To anyone else, it might have seemed insignificant. To Victoria, however, it symbolized so much more: redemption, resilience, and the power of second chances. But despite the accolades and positive feedback, Victoria remained acutely aware of how fragile trust could be. She knew that one misstep could undo all the progress she had made, so she continued to push herself and her team to uphold the values they had collectively embraced. Monthly workshops became a staple, focusing not just on technical skills like styling and merchandising, but also on emotional intelligence and interpersonal communication. Employees were encouraged to share their own experiences, both good and bad, with clients, fostering a culture of transparency and continuous improvement. One afternoon, during one of these sessions, a junior stylist named Clara raised her hand, hesitantly. "I wanted to ask something," she began, glancing nervously at Victoria. "What happens if we make a mistake? Like, what if we offend someone accidentally?" The room fell silent, everyone turning to look at Victoria. For a moment, she considered brushing off the question with a generic response. Instead, she chose honesty. "We're human," she said softly. "Mistakes will happen, it's inevitable. But what matters is how we respond to them. We apologize sincerely, take responsibility, and do everything in our power to make things right. And most importantly, we learn from it so it doesn't happen again." Her words resonated deeply with the group, sparking a lively discussion about accountability and empathy. By the end of the session, Clara looked visibly relieved, her earlier anxiety replaced by determination. Seeing this transformation reinforced Victoria's belief that leadership wasn't just about managing operations, it was about nurturing people. As word of the boutique's revamped approach spread, its reputation began to soar. Customers who had previously sworn off shopping, they returned, pleasantly surprised by the warm welcome and personalized attention they received. Even competitors couldn't deny the noticeable shift, grudgingly acknowledging that Victoria had set a new standard for luxury retail. Social media buzzed with glowing reviews, and influencers started frequenting the store, sharing photos of themselves modeling outfits purchased there. Yet amidst all the external validation, Victoria found her greatest source of fulfillment in quieter moments. Like the time an elderly woman came in looking for a dress for her granddaughter's wedding. Despite not fitting the typical profile of a high-spending client, the woman was treated with the same level of care and respect as any celebrity. When she left, tears in her eyes and clutching her purchase, Victoria felt a deep sense of satisfaction knowing they had made a difference. For Sarah, witnessing this evolution firsthand solidified her decision to forgive Victoria. During subsequent visits to the boutique, she noticed subtle yet meaningful details. The way employees greeted regulars by name, the thoughtful recommendations tailored to individual preferences, the overall atmosphere of kindness that permeated every corner. Each visit reaffirmed her belief in the importance of giving people opportunities to grow. One day, while trying on a chic black cocktail dress, Sarah caught sight of herself in the mirror and smiled. The fabric hugged her figure perfectly, accentuating her elegance without overwhelming her natural beauty. As she stepped out of the fitting room, Victoria approached, her expression brightening. "You look stunning," Victoria said genuinely, her tone free of any trace of sarcasm or condescension. "That dress was made for you." "Thank you," Sarah replied, meeting her gaze warmly. "You've done an incredible job with this place, Victoria. It feels different. Better." Victoria's cheeks flushed slightly, touched by the compliment. "That means a lot coming from you," she admitted. "Honestly, I owe so much of this to you. If it weren't for your grace and understanding, I don't know where I'd be right now." Sarah shook her head gently. "Don't sell yourself. Short, you're the one who put in the work. I just gave you a chance to show what you're capable of." Their exchange ended with mutual respect and gratitude, two women bound together by an unlikely journey of growth and reconciliation. For Victoria, it served as a reminder of how far she had come and how much further she could go. For Sarah, it reinforced her faith in humanity's ability to change for the better. And so, what had begun as a moment of humiliation transformed into something extraordinary, a story of redemption, humility, and the enduring power of forgiveness. Both women emerged stronger, wiser, and more compassionate than before, carrying lessons they would cherish for the rest of their lives. Months had passed since Sarah's fateful visit to the boutique, and life seemed to have settled into a rhythm of newfound understanding and growth. For both her and Victoria, the boutique itself had become something of a local legend, not just for its exquisite collection, but for the way it made every customer feel valued regardless of their background or appearance. People often remarked on the palpable sense of warmth when they walked through its doors, as if stepping into a space where judgment was replaced by kindness. For Victoria, this transformation wasn't merely professional, it was deeply personal. She had spent years building walls around herself, convinced that maintaining an air of superiority would protect her from failure or vulnerability. But the encounter with Sarah had shattered those walls, forcing her to confront the person she truly was beneath the polished exterior. What emerged was someone humbler, more empathetic, and infinitely more connected to the world around her. One crisp autumn morning, Victoria arrived at the boutique earlier than usual, sipping a cup of coffee as she reviewed the day's schedule. A familiar face caught her eye outside the window, Sarah walking toward the store with a soft smile on her face. For a moment, Victoria froze, unsure whether this was another coincidental visit or something more deliberate. Setting her coffee aside, she stepped out to greet her. "Good morning," Victoria said warmly, holding the door open. "It's lovely to see you again." Sarah nodded, returning the greeting with equal sincerity. "Morning, Victoria. I hope I'm not interrupting anything." "Not at all," Victoria replied quickly. "Please come in." As they moved inside, Sarah glanced around, taking in the subtle changes that had been made since her last visit. Fresh flowers adorned the counters, their fragrance mingling with the faint scent of vanilla candles. Employees bustled about, their smiles genuine and unhurried. It was clear that the boutique's evolution was ongoing, a living testament to Victoria's commitment to excellence. "I wanted to stop by because, well, I heard some wonderful things about how things are going here," Sarah said after a pause. "I thought I'd see for myself." Victoria's cheeks flushed slightly, touched by the acknowledgement. "Thank you for saying that. We've worked hard to create a space where everyone feels welcome. Honestly, it's thanks to you that we even started down this path." Sarah tilted her head, studying Victoria carefully. "You give me too much credit. You're the one who put in the effort. All I did was remind you of what really matters. And sometimes reminders are exactly what people need," Victoria countered gently. There was no defensiveness in her voice, only gratitude. "Still, I'll never forget the lesson you taught me, that assumptions can be dangerous and humility is the key to growth." Their conversation flowed naturally, touching on everything from fashion trends to shared experiences of navigating high-pressure environments. Sarah spoke candidly about the challenges of balancing privacy with public life, while Victoria opened up about the pressures of managing a luxury brand in a competitive industry. Despite their vastly different worlds, they found common ground in their mutual desire to connect with others authentically. Eventually, the topic turned to Keanu. "How is he?" Victoria asked, her tone curious but respectful. "I haven't seen him around lately," Sarah chuckled softly. "He's doing well, busy with work as always. He sends his regards, though. He remembers our chat fondly." The mention of Keanu brought a brief flicker of amusement to Victoria's expression. She couldn't help but marvel at the irony of it all. A few months ago, she hadn't even known Sarah existed beyond the confines of her own biased perception. Now here they were, exchanging pleasantries like old friends. Before leaving, Sarah browsed through the racks one final time, eventually selecting a sleek navy blue blazer. As Victoria rang up the purchase, she hesitated before adding, "If there's ever anything else I can do for you, or if you'd like to bring any friends along, we'd be honored to assist." Sarah smiled, recognizing the gesture for what it was, an olive branch extended not out of obligation but out of genuine goodwill. "I appreciate that," she said. "And don't worry, I'll spread the word about how wonderful this place has become." When Sarah finally left, Victoria watched her go with a mix of emotions swirling inside her. Pride, relief, and a lingering sense of wonder at how drastically her life had changed because of one seemingly ordinary day. She realized then that forgiveness wasn't just a gift given to others. It was also a catalyst for self-discovery and reinvention. In the weeks that followed, Sarah reflected on her own journey. Forgiving Victoria hadn't been easy, not because she harbored resentment, but because letting go of anger required strength. Yet, in choosing compassion over bitterness, she had not only helped heal a wound but also inspired meaningful change. It reminded her of a quote she loved. "Forgiveness doesn't mean forgetting. It means moving forward without carrying the weight of the past." Keanu noticed the shift in her demeanor, too. "You seem lighter," he commented one evening as they strolled hand in hand along the beach. "Like something's been lifted off your shoulders." "I think it has," Sarah admitted. "Helping someone else grow reminded me of why I believe in second chances. Everyone deserves the opportunity to become better versions of themselves." Her words resonated deeply with Keanu, who had always admired her ability to find grace in difficult situations. "That's one of the things I love most about you," he said, squeezing her hand affectionately. "Your heart is bigger than anyone gives you credit for." Back at the boutique, Victoria continued to lead with the same principles that had guided her transformation: humility, empathy, and integrity. Her team thrived under her mentorship, each member embracing the ethos of treating every customer with dignity and respect. The boutique flourished, becoming a beacon of inclusivity in an industry often criticized for exclusivity. Yet perhaps the greatest triumph was the bond forged between Sarah and Victoria, a friendship born out of adversity and nurtured by forgiveness. They didn't see each other frequently, but when they did, their interactions were filled with mutual respect and admiration. Two women from vastly different walks of life had discovered that connection transcended titles, wealth, or fame. The seasons changed and the years rolled on. The story of their encounter became a quiet legend within Beverly Hills, a tale whispered among shoppers and employees alike. It served as a reminder that even in a world obsessed with appearances, true beauty lay in the courage to admit mistakes, the power of forgiveness, and the endless potential for growth. And so, what had begun as a moment of humiliation transformed into a legacy of redemption. Both Sarah and Victoria carried the lessons of that day with them, using them to shape not just their own lives, but the lives of those around them. In the end, it wasn't about luxury dresses or designer labels. It was about the enduring impact of kindness, humility, and the belief that everyone deserves a chance to shine.